This is Anish Chauhan and this is Equilibrium Security. It's time to tackle your biggest cyber security challenges head on. Thank you everybody for joining us on this episode. I'm really excited to be talking about this particular subject. Now, on this episode, when I first spoke to this guest, ever so occasionally, all of our opinions and everything we want to talk about aligns perfectly. And today's guest is a perfect example of that. So as a quick teaser, we're going to be talking about cyber training and its blind spot and why generic security training just basically fails, really. So as a quick introduction, I'm joined by Hani Momeninia. And, as a day-to-day day job, you're in the red team at SAP and founder of Invest Cyber. So that's quite an interesting background. So I'll let you briefly introduce yourself as well, Hani.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Hani. I work as a part of red team at SAP. So we mostly focusing on a proper team exercise, sometimes simulated attacks. But my background came from a system administrator. So I used to be a guy who loved an Active Directory and a Cisco switching. So I came from that Cisco background, and then I moved on to do more like a pen testing and later on into red teaming. And also in my spare time, I have my own personal branding called Invest Cyber, where I run events, workshops, trainings, and I try to make a CTF competition, especially for kids. This is a very interesting one. It might be related to what we're talking about today.
That's so cool. Thanks, Hani. So, as I said at the beginning, we're going to be talking about the blind spots of cybersecurity training. But let me just tee you up with one quick question, Hani. Why do you think that generic training falls short of what it's trying to achieve?
Yeah, everything's changing rapidly. Like if you look at it, 10 years ago, when we started to do this, open to this field, everything was quite simpler. We didn't have those, advanced cyber criminals using latest technique and technology. We didn't have AI. We didn't have ChatGPT. We didn't have LLMs and so on. And things change. And now they say is that you can't train your cybersecurity in the same way that you train everyone else. Everyone needs to be tailored education. And also the one thing that we might have a chance to later on talk about it is that it doesn't work anymore. You just need to be more focused on individuals, and people are different.
They are very different. And I think the point is like the old school training, if we want to call it that, it's static. It's let's face it, it's most organizations or a lot of organizations are doing it because they have to. It's compliance focused. And I think what you're saying is it's got nothing to do with real user behavior. So what gaps have you seen between training and real world threats? What do those two gaps look like from your perspective?
Yeah, to keep it actually short, because this is a topic that you can talk about it forever.
I think we say that on all of our podcasts, actually.
It's all the podcasts, yeah. So one of the things that I've seen so far is like the traditional training, even now these days, you see all those brands are providing very, very expensive trainings for like few £1,000 that you purchase. One of the problems that I've seen is that it's exactly the same format I was like 10 years ago. A bunch of PDFs, a lab, and then that's it. You get certified. And a lot of certification are really focusing on that. But when you see in real world, it's kind of different. Like when you work, let's say, example of pen tester, you're not just a technical person. You are on a scoping call. You need to know about of sales. You need to know about of like report writing. You need to all know about the communication between the customers and the company. And you just need to know the skills that usually you don't learn during the certifications. And this is something that, as you mentioned at the beginning, is just a tick a box exercise. Just want to get the certification so we can charge X amount to the clients, saying that this group of engineering, they have this certification. So that's one of the things that I've seen it that things change. Now these days, with the whole pen testing or red teaming and stuff, the behavior change. Like you see the threat criminals, they're getting advanced, they're getting smarter, and they're using all those advanced tools that we never thought, And also, the fun part is like those tools usually are not part of the course. Like if you do a latest one, let's say the most famous Bible of cybersecurity, OSCP.
Yeah.
OSCP changed recently to it is like adding Active Directory. But if you
Yeah.
think about it, OSCP was like that for many, many years. Okay. And they haven't
Mm.
changed. The reason they changed because they had the competition. Other companies start providing something that is more related to a real world.
Real world. Yeah.
And as you to just kind of wrap up this question is that um, one of the things that I've seen a lot is that there's a lot of assumption when you do those training and courses.
Hmm.
Assume you have access. Assume you have a vulnerability that haven't been patched from 2002. We've seen this, there's an example of it, but it's just not doing enough.
It's not real world, doesn't it?
It's
And
not real world. Yeah.
that's exactly kind of what we're saying about intelligent targeted attacks, right?
Yeah.
So threat intel is being used by attackers to make their campaigns
Yeah.
way more sophisticated and harder to detect. They're using, open source intelligence. They're using data that's already been breached as part of their attack, and they're using regional. And this is a point I want to briefly touch on: is regional, industry, and company specific things. So one of the biggest things that we hear when a client talks about the training they're getting is that they're a UK based company and the training is Americanized. It's saying, oh, uh, cybersecurity industry cost the industry's 20 billion last year, and this is a company that turns over like 20 million. So
Yeah.
to that individual person, it doesn't resonate, it doesn't make any, it doesn't mean anything. And so
Yeah.
using those things on, it's irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah, is the whole threat intel is recently is getting much better. Attackers using agentic AIs to
Mm.
collect information about the organizations. So they're using every single agent, focusing on different parts of the threat intel, and they are getting much faster. So like what we did is that at SAP we created that we have this LLM, which is like think about it as a chat GPT.
Yeah.
Okay, but we trained it with our own data, and now he's a
Hmm.
smart. He understand detection, he understand an exercise, he understand how to integrate with other tools, and so on. So we can say like, okay, we want to do exercise and we want to target this part of the business. The LLM understand what this type of part of the business means and how
Hmm.
they need to do stuff. So attackers using that. You know the fun part, attackers been using this for a long time, but they never called it
Yeah.
ChatGPT.
No, that's
Yeah,
right. They're using
they
that,
call
and
it
that's sorry,
sophisticated
Annie.
tool. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the difference. Is that's the gap. There is a gap between what the attackers are using
yeah,
and what people are actually protecting against. And from a
yeah,
training perspective, that's exactly it, isn't it? Is
yeah,
there's a gap between what people are doing and what people um are trying to learn about.
yeah. I mean, if you look at it and stuff, I started around like 15, nearly, even more years ago. And there weren't that many companies who were doing the cybersecurity trainings. It was a couple of companies who were focusing on networking and Cisco networking.
Yeah.
And there were some other companies that they were just focused on IT in general. And this is something I highly, highly, recommend to anyone who want to jump in cyber. Do not try to jump to a security trainings as your first course you ever done in IT. You're gonna struggle. This is
It's
something that
not
I told everyone.
it's nice to hear someone much younger than me say that, because when I say it, people think, "Oh, you're just an old guy. You did that
Nah,
years ago."
no,
I
I
mean, I'm
said
joking,
it. Yeah.
obviously, but yeah, no,
You know what I do is like every year I pick up 2 to 3 students from universities and I do this mentorship program. What
yeah,
I do is that I call them every single week and try to just build career around whatever passionate about. So I have a student from a university and she was really wanted to become a hacker. She was like, I want to be like hacker. I want to be a red
hmm,
teamer and
we see
so
that
on
all the time. Yeah.
all the time. And I said, okay, so what do you think is the red team is? They were like, oh, have you watched that movie? What was that the hacker guy from? It was a Netflix show. What's the name of it?
Uh,
Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like I want to be Mr. Robot. I want to have a USB robot ducky and so on. I I burst their bubble. The first thing I'm telling them is that it's just a movie. Of course, there's techniques that are you can do in like a real world and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but this is not something you want to focus on. So it's a kind
Mm.
of a similar to the cyber education. Like everyone who graduates from university these days and want to pursue a career in cybersecurity, you know what's the first things I would tell them?
Mm.
Don't.
Mm.
Don't do it. Okay. You're gonna burn out, you're gonna get stuck, okay, and then
Mm.
you're just gonna leave. And also you're competing with the people that have been sysadmin or web developer for 20 years. These people
There's
know they know everything about web app, they know everything about infrastructure.
yeah, having that grounding is important.
It's really, really important because later on is like you get really get stuck. You need to be loving the technology. Should be really passionate about it. So that's the things I always burst the student bubbles. Like, you know, get a job for 2 years as a cloud engineering or DevOps or a
Yeah.
web designer or whatever you want to do.
Mm.
Focus on the technology. Like one of my students, he really wanted to be a hacker. I said, "What do you
Mm-hmm.
like?" He's like, "I love Kubernetes." I'm like, "All right, all right." Kubernetes is a very niche area, and
Mm-hmm.
there's not much research being done. Focus on building Kubernetes, maintaining Kubernetes, and write scripts to automate tasks. Then,
Yeah.
when you understand Kubernetes, and then you can write down security of Kubernetes.
Yeah, I
So it's the
totally
same
agree.
as everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that kind of in some way leads me on to my next thing is that I think we sort of touched on it already. Training content is built to target everyone, right? It's like it's trying to be everything to all people.
Yes.
So how
Yeah.
does it, in your perspective, how does it one size fits all? It kind of how does it lead to kind of disengagement and people going, this doesn't apply to me anymore, or apply to me, sorry.
Is before we jump to this one, it's really, really nice. I mean, great topic. I used to have a mentor many years ago when I started
Hmm.
to this field, and he said something really interesting. He said that um, the education system that we have now in cyber education or anything stuff is
Mm.
not designed for everyone learning the same topic. So when I'm
Yeah.
saying everyone is that some people are visual. Like for me
Hmm.
personally, if you give me a PDF, 20 pages, 30 pages PDF, all text, okay,
Yeah.
and give me some
Mm.
slides, I'm not gonna learn anything.
Yeah.
You know, the only way I can learn something is when someone draw it and tell me a story of it.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
memorized that. So why
Yeah.
I'm saying that there was many years ago. They're still there, by the way, as a business. There's a company used to called I still same called CBT Nugget.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you know them, but they're
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah, so they're
Hmm.
really famous. CBT Nugget was one of the companies that I really enjoyed watching the videos. A lot of videos
Yeah.
these days is like on a
There's a guy
PDF.
with a whiteboard and he's drawing stuff and he's writing
Exactly.
stuff and he's talking
And
to
he
you, right?
and
Yeah.
he was making a character. There's a character called
Yeah.
Steve. He have this problem in IT and
That's
he want to
yeah.
go there. Exactly. So now I still know the character. I know what's problem I can solve and I understand it in a better way.
It's
And
relatable. Mm.
my teacher used to say that if you can't explain something in a simple term, okay, you don't understand it.
You don't understand it. I love that. Yeah,
Okay.
that's really good. Yeah.
So there was other companies like IT Pro that came up and they were doing some fantastic job. The only company that I've seen so far that doing similar things for AI security is IBM. They have this
Mm.
YouTube channel that you can go and watch. Is that there's this guy have a glass wall and he draw on the glass
I've
wall
seen it. Yeah, and you're like looking at it the other side, right?
exactly other
Yeah.
side, but he's really, really like focused on this topic and he's knowledgeable. He
Mm.
expanded, he just stuff. So this type of training is that I personally learn. I've seen people learning from by doing, which is really the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of trainings they're trying to adapt around that and try to just give you labs and so on. But the quality is going down. If you see,
Mm.
it's all about sales, it's about certification and so on. And they can't keep up with the demand. If you see what's happening in the market now, how
Mm.
many courses you know that they are teaching AI security? It's not many.
No,
Sans has
no.
one of them, but they are very, very new. They're like in beta. Who else
Yeah.
have it? Um, OffSix started a few months ago, but they syllabus are not complete. They still
Mm.
stage there. There's some other company that started this. You see how fast we're moving, but
Mm.
the trainings are not there yet. And most of the times you do like a pen test trainings. They teach you
Yeah.
on like Windows 7 or some old,
Mm.
bugs that's
Mm.
been
Mm.
there, so on. The only company done it really great, and they still like keep going our TCM security.
Yeah.
TCM Security, the guy from Cyber Mentor, the reason he done that, he made a package of soft skills, technical skills, and the exam is basically you work with a fake customer. This is something that never done before in industry. Or if you see the certification like from other organization, they give you a lab and you just follow the lab and you do something, or like exams are multiple choice questions. You do the multiple choice question and you get certified. But the only company step up the game saying like, it's not good enough. We're looking for people who are being on top of engagement. They want to customer facing, they want reporting and so on. So they put this as an exam. And now some of the exam are very, very tough because it's not just about taking a box. It's not about multiple choice questions or some old school bugs in like Windows operating system. It's about cutting edge and trying to do that. I want to say this more. This is what we're missing now at the moment.
Definitely. And I think in some ways what you're saying is kind of like context. You need to have real context. So you're doing it in this lab environment. It doesn't relate to the real world, but certainly with like cyber awareness training, it's got to have some context. Like, for example, I really like talking to users about why they're a target. Why would somebody try to phish you and get your information? They're just thinking, look, I'm just a HR admin in a company, in a law firm in in Birmingham or whatever. Why would anyone target me? As soon as you start explaining to that person a little bit of why would a hacker get your information? What are they trying to get access to? Where's it going to end up? The why builds a really strong narrative. And to go back to your point, the mental model to kind of understand why they're being targeted. So straight away they're going, I get that now. Now I understand why I need to be doing this and doing that. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, there was a show called Person of Interest. I don't know if you've seen it.
I heard of it. I didn't see it.
That person of interest, every time was like, why I work in sales, I get hacked. I said like, not just because who you are, just because what type of work you do and for who you're working. So if the hackers wanted to break your organization, they look at weakest point and they're looking for people who
they don't
care.
Yeah. Have you got any examples that you can talk about to our listeners about where some kind of threat intel was used? So somebody was using some information out there, some open source intelligence, that they use some examples. Have you seen anything like that? Like
I've
maybe
seen
that you can talk
all the
about.
time. So I'm going to give you a really interesting one. We usually, when we do red team engagement, we like mostly UK based. We had really that we had this engagement that was out of the country for some like data protection and policies. We usually can't do it. But when I used to work for this company before, we had these international clients, and the threat intel internationally is much difficult. And that's why I want to explain this one rather than some casual ones that we usually do. Is that they were in Thailand, so time zone is different, as you see, language is different, and culture is different as well.
Sure.
So when we wanted to do that, we didn't have access to all those AI and stuff. So what we done is that we start doing research. We start making a map, the same way that you see in the movies. We start making who work for which company, what's their shift look like, what those information. We check their social media. We made a map of who works in the IT department based on the LinkedIn, based on the information they post. And we kind of knew the ID badges as well, because usually people, when they get a new job, they're so excited to put their, employee badge on the LinkedIn, say, I'm so excited to announce I got this X job. And we kind of know how this looked like, and so on. We had an internal person as well. We went all the way to Thailand, fly there, and he used to understand the language as well. So
okay, yeah.
He knew about the culture and everything else, and we tried to. It was a big hotel we were trying to break into. He even got a room there for like a week. And what we told him is that start making relationship with the receptionist, with the security and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, and that relationship kind of ended up to be moving rooms because he wasn't feeling good. So we're looking at the port on the TV that we can inject our implant and so on. One of the things that we never thought we're going to find is that Wi-Fi names. So there's a database that is all the Wi-Fis around the world, especially hotels, are there. So you can put the name of the hotel, you give the SSID name,
Hmm.
and that's how we managed to find out where this implant is located and how far is
Okay.
it from that building.
Yeah, yeah,
We looked at Google Map images, and which was really interesting because we didn't know how that place. We never been there, so we just needed a bit of like threat intel. And also we looked at some breach databases to see if that hotel was breached before, if there's a password we
yeah.
can reuse, and so on. It was one of the most interesting project I've done. But if I can just say, the best threat intel we've done was just having someone inside.
And that sounds really interesting, really exciting.
It's
And
yeah, it's a whole thing.
and how would generic cyber awareness training have ever protected anybody from that scenario? It wouldn't. When we talk about cyber awareness training, we're talking about
Yeah,
social engineering, we're talking about darkware, we're talking about information that's available, we're talking about all those things. Generic training, it's like
it's,
it's in a
it's
different postcode.
the only reason joint training is works now because leadership usually thinking about ticking a box is saying that
That's it.
60%
Yeah.
of the people they've done training and so on. And you always see like attacks like what was the recent one, MNS one, and some
Yeah.
other ones. It happens all the time.
It
And one
does.
thing
It
that
does.
you the cyber security training doesn't teach you is that we learned this is a very dark technique. We're not allowed to use it, but
Yeah.
we use it once. Is that you hackers and cyber criminals? They really don't care about the individuals. They really care. They have a motive, they have a budget, they
Mm,
have resources, and they
yeah.
want to get to their goals. So if it looks like they want to put pressure on individuals to make a certain decision, they'll definitely do
Hmm.
that. When I say
Hmm.
that, is like if they're looking at you are looking at the list of the medication you're taking or your relationship or you have
Yeah.
like family and stuff, they even target them, and they're
For
like
sure.
sending you a message from a school saying that your kid is broke his leg, so on. You're definitely
Mm,
going to go out of office.
for sure,
You're
without a
just going
doubt.
to
Yeah.
run there,
Of
or
course.
try to just give you like a letter from a court saying that you're divorced, something
Mm,
happened to it.
hmm.
And this is something that most of people they don't understand. Phishing is not about, oh, I love dogs, send me some dog pictures. Sometimes it's really really accurate and very like precise targeting on individuals. So I don't think cybersecurity training will prepare you anytime for that.
No, 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 that's fair.
Yeah,
And then, so you talked about some personal elements and sort of
yeah,
kind of like actual context. How can we, and like you mentioned like execs and things like that are a
yeah,
target. So what role does kind of playing more context, how does it how can we make that leap between context and more meaningful cybersecurity education? Like you're describing some things here which
yeah.
you're never going to be able to account for, right? But
Well,
how
yeah.
how can we bridge that gap of those two things a little bit closer?
Do you remember everyone used to talk about zero trust,
Yeah.
and now everyone putting everything on ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have these phases. I've been in cyber not more than like 15, 20 years, but I've seen this pattern, and everyone talked about it. Is that thing changing in cyber, new technology comes, and people blindly trust it.
Mm,
Okay, and this is something
yeah,
that's happening now at the moment.
for sure,
And
definitely.
I can say the only way you can just make it harder for hackers. I'm not saying impossible because it's all
Mm,
matter of time. Because when you do a pen test red team, you're fixed on a time and a budget. You need to do
hmm.
like pen test for 1 week.
Yeah,
But when it comes to cyber criminals, they don't have budget.
a
They don't
limit.
have time. They don't have emotions. They really just want to get things done. So
Yeah.
the best things to do is that try to do the similar things that what TCM done. Like try to make the trainings based on an organization. Like for example, like for us like SAP, what we've done is that instead of sending you to a training, get a certification, okay,
Mm,
we do workshops, and we do workshops are focusing on our technology. So let's say
hmm.
we use hyperscalers, we use like AWS and stuff. We're focusing on the technology that we're using, and what we even done is that so far is that we even create a lab with our type of tools.
Yeah.
okay, with the latest one. So when the training starts, we are inside our training, we inside our organization, we kind of like working with the technology we work every day, instead of
Hmm.
sending them to break to some 2016 vulnerability in Linux and get a certification. So we
Yeah.
focus on that. The second thing is like we focus on individuals. We kind of have these meetings with them. My team is, that's what I do as a manager. So I
Yeah.
sit down with them. I just or I always like, if I'm working in a team as in a purple team and stuff, I focus on that. I say like, okay, what makes you learn, and I kind of making notes as well. So
Hmm.
when we do like a competition and stuff like that, we're trying to focus on individuals, the way they learn as well. It's
Yeah.
not just that. It's very hard topic, and it's getting in a wrong direction at the moment with the
Mm.
whole certification and ticking a box and so on. So let's
Yeah.
hope it goes the right direction.
Yeah, the ticking the box thing is a problem across the industry, whether it's
Yeah,
testing or training. But yeah, I totally agree with you. So I think what you've said there is that real world simulation beats theoretical training. So you've got the theory, the stuff that happens over
yeah,
here, then you've got the real world stuff. So you're definitely bringing those things together as best you can. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
and also you mentioned about, or did you mention it? I'm not sure now, but talked about how people behave under pressure, and like a red team
Yes.
activity, the red team activity kind of like puts somebody under pressure in a real life
Yeah.
scenario. Yeah, yeah. In a doing a certification to test a Windows 7 box, like you said, that's not real. So training similarly has got to somehow put individuals under some pressure, because that's what the real world attack is
Yeah.
based on.
So like a
How
blue
do
teaming and stuff, like incident
yeah,
response. Yeah.
yeah. So how do you think, kind of like, how does a red team insights help? How does that help prepare users for a real world attack? How can we again bridge the gap between those two?
The red team changed. We used to have these scenarios like assume compromise and sit down on a
Hmm.
box and try to see what we can
Yeah.
do from it. And now these days it's a bit different. Everyone's trying to introduce this advanced tooling that they can do, red team simulation and so on. I think the best way to do it is that to focus on a customer. So if you're doing a red team for a customer, focus on the business process, not just the technology they're using.
Hmm.
Just think about it, how they do stuff. Like one of the things that we've done in past is that we knew a company have an instant response. We
Hmm.
knew they have a blue teamers, they always 24/7, so on. One of the things I never thought about is that we can make the blue team exhausted. Absolutely. For a week, we were just doing
Yeah.
false positive campaigns. False positive campaigns, servers, infrastructure, build that, make so much noise. And after a week, everyone were closing like hundreds of thousand tickets every day. And
Mm.
this is something that they thought that they are the best blue teamers. They always keep an eye. But think about it. Your job used to be you used to close like 500 tickets, like let's say a week. Okay,
Hmm.
it's not
Yeah.
realistic, but yeah.
Sure.
But then you start closing like 4,000 tickets. Okay, the week after that, you're used to false positive. You're like, you know what? Don't worry. Last week being a nightmare. It's still a false
Mm.
positive. There's
Mm.
some script kiddies want to just run and map on our network and so on,
Sure.
and that's the best time to do that. So this is something that we taught them. We said, okay, just because you had a nightmare or have a storm a week before
Mm.
doesn't need to keep your guard down. You just need
Down.
to
Yeah.
focus. So that's what they learn now. If they see a nightmare week or pattern of like a lot of
Mm.
disruption for no
Yeah.
reason and it's all
Yeah.
false positive, they stay sharper now. So we taught them actually a lesson. So it's not about going with some like fancy tools and try to just hack it in like in 2 days. It's more about, did you learn the lesson? The lesson wasn't a red team. Red team was the lesson was like keep focused no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I spoke with some of the blue team and they were like, we were getting some random IP addresses. I was like, yeah, we know we use AWS for that. So we were
Okay.
we were rotating our IP addresses and stuff. And they even start blocking IP addresses from AWS. And
Right.
as soon they've done that, the application broke down because the application used AWS infrastructure.
Easy to, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's like more about focus on a customer's need and what they want to learn from it. Do not try to do a generic red team, okay, and call it a red team and write a report. Focus on what they need and what type of lesson they want to learn from it.
Yeah.
and focus on that. It's really difficult to do a red team in like a week or 10 days and just call it a
Mm.
red team.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Hopefully the red team thing doesn't become a tick box activity, because that's the only thing that at the moment is reflecting real life. But we'll hopefully keep our fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
Well,
So
yeah.
what I think what businesses need to do as we sort of start thinking about wrapping up the conversation is future proof the training. So we mentioned automation, we've mentioned agentic AI.
Yeah.
How should, I think, how, if we're going to summarize, cybersecurity training needs to keep up with modern threats. So training has got to evolve, hasn't
Yeah.
it, with the dynamic nature of it. It's got to be intelligence led. But at the same time, the challenge is people want their training in smaller and digestible format, right? It needs to
Yeah.
be micro learning. It needs to be like a TikTok video. It needs to be
Yeah.
like, if it hasn't got your attention in 6 seconds,
That's it.
they've lost interest. So
Yes.
and also the content needs to be adaptive, and there needs to be some
Yeah.
feedback to throw. So that's what it all needs to couple into, right? It's
Yeah.
got to be dynamic, it's got to be micro learning, it's got to be adaptive. Not it's easier said than done, right? But that's the goal.
Yeah, it's really, really difficult to actually implement it. And also, things change. If you focus on a training for 6 months and 1 year, next year things change all the time. Okay,
Hmm.
but I was keep in mind that is all goes to basics. Okay, like things topics about zero trust. Never trust any other clients from outside
Hmm.
the VPN. Use
Hmm.
MFA and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Those are just making it so much harder for a threat actor to see if it's worth it or not.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
so it's like we have bots on the internet that always scan
Hmm.
your computer, and I
Sure.
proved it at the University of Nottingham. I was doing this presentation. I created a server on AWS in the EC2
Hmm.
server, and then as soon as I set up the server and I opened port 22 on a firewall and I
Yeah,
put a Wireshark on the side, for in like a less than like few seconds, I got like hundreds of bots scanning me.
sure.
They knew about this service existing. They knew the IP address, the version
Mm.
of the SSH I'm using, operating system, everything. So if you think you're faster than the hackers, just think twice because
Yeah.
they're already there. They're already automating and stuff. One thing that I didn't manage to mention is that when you talk about cybersecurity trainings and
Hmm.
all those, we always talk about adults, that people have jobs, that people
Yeah,
are like in industry and actual real jobs.
sure.
But the things I've been doing in last few months and year now is like I'm focusing on kids because I again think about it. Those kids, year like let's say year 8 to year 11,
Hmm.
they are the future of the cybersecurity of the country.
It
If
is.
they grow up, because my time we didn't have this Instagram and TikTok and LLM. I never had the Chat GPT. If I had Chat GPT, I would ask Chat GPT all my coursework. But that's what the kids doing now. Okay,
Hmm.
so they're really really exposed to the latest technology, but they have zero focus trainings on them to make sure that they grow up in a security minded. I told them like, do not put your address in ChatGPT, do not put personal
Hmm.
information, so
Hmm.
on.
Hmm.
So that's why I've been focusing on as a part of Invest Cyber is that we're focusing on creating like real world scenarios like a
Hmm.
CTF as a game, and we
Yeah.
invite schools to come to those events. We've done that. We've done one last year, and we want to do another one this year as well. And kids are playing this game. They learn about this threat that's out there, and they are part of the investigation. They are the forensic team that helping me personally as a
That's
professional
so cool.
to find the attacker. And you have no idea. They are super smart.
And
I
how old are
thought
these kids? How old are
that
these kids?
year 8 to year 11. I don't know how
That's
they
so.
old.
Oh, they must love that. They must love that.
Yeah, and they never done something like this before, so that's why we kind of looking for like an sponsor to even do it more. And it was
Mm.
really, really highly. But think about it this way: we talked about cyber education for last 30, 40 minutes now.
Sure.
One thing that I wish we can see it more is that I completely understand. Focus on on a lot of people try to just make the cyber education more interesting. The cyber education need to be targeting multiple people. One,
Hmm.
first of all, young generation. This is the generation that are working with technology more than you think. Okay, they
Yes.
use it every day. Have you seen like a young person on the street without a phone in their phone and or just texting? 24/7. Go on a train. You see everyone on their phone and so on. The second generations are the ones are working in cybersecurity, working in IT, but they need that, cutting edge, the things that we were talking about, real world scenarios. And the third group is that the people who never worked in IT, they never work in cyber, but they're always a person of interest because of the company they work for or the organization that they work for. So we need to make a trainings not generic for three groups. We need to adjust it for different groups. Like for the kids, different. For the people who have a background in IT, it should be different. And the ones are that they never worked in IT, but they work in like marketing or sales or so on, and they should be in that. But I don't see that. I see like one package fitting everyone at the moment.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? So I guess what you've sort of already answered the question I was going to ask you actually, but that's so if I'm giving you a magic wand, you can redesign cybersecurity education from the ground up. And how would you get threat intelligence to factor into it? So first of all, you're doing it for different groups, for the younger generation, for the kind of the mid one, like you said, and there's those person of interest. What about what else? How else can we, if organizations are wanting to bridge that training gap and they want to start it from tomorrow, what else do they need to do?
This is something that is quite interesting. Is if you want to change the industry, focus on scenario based trainings. This is something that we've done that in Birmingham a few months ago. We had this a competition run by Institute SANS and UK government. And what they've done is that they created a fake company, fake name, fake domain, fake scenarios, okay? And they brought 250 people in one room, okay, which is really hard and stuff, okay? And and what they done was a threat intel based attack, and they need to do forensic, they need to do investigation to see how this attack started and find an attacker and so on. So spend a lot of resources on quality of training. Do not worry about, this is going to tick a box or I'm going to be the next OffSec or SANS or Cisco. Do not try to do that. Focus on that. That's what I'm trying to personally do, is that focus on the trainings that everyone enjoy watching it, not just because they're forced to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and the threat intel part is really interesting. There's a lot of use cases and case studies. Take the case study, build a lab around it, and try to explain it as a story, and let everyone be involved. And that's the best way to learn. And this is something that I want to see more. I really want to see more. I think that we go into that direction because some companies start doing it, and other companies, they see the result of it, and they like, you know what? I think we're a bit behind. I can see why this certification or this exam or this, trainings are getting better. And the compliance training, the boring one that everyone needs to do in the companies, make it more interesting. We did the similar things. I don't know if we have time, but we created what they call them, escape room.
Oh yes, yeah.
Escape room, but escape room that you are part of it. There's a virtual, you put a goggle and stuff, you're inside the office, you do your job day to day, and then a cyber attack happen. So you are part of the process. Like for example, you go downstairs, there's a package, say like to your manager, you go downstairs and you speak with the person, and the dialogue, we got it from use cases and case studies that we use in like a real attacks. And it's more interesting. We got like a 80 to 90% result of people really wanted to do it. Okay.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's really good. And I don't know, use creativity. Don't try to just keep it dry. Try to keep it more interesting. And also think about it, how we can improve it all the time. Do not try to just make a package and try it everyone. Yeah, especially ticking a box. Multiple choice questions, please don't do that. Everyone's going to brute force it. We know that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when the actual phishing happen, everyone's so exhausted. They're not going to spot it at all. Especially if it's near the bonus time, because that's what we've done.
That's exactly what we did.
We created an Excel sheet to see who can get bonus and what percentage, and we send it to people near the bonus time or Christmas time.
Yeah.
You know.
I know.
You always
it's
you
not,
think
it's not
twice.
great.
Yeah.
So summarizing the points then, make it specific to the people, don't make it generic, think outside the box, be creative, make it realistic, and then we're already on a good road to getting good quality cybersecurity education, right?
Yeah, we getting there. We just need to be more people coming up and bringing some fresh ideas. The
Yes.
reason that we didn't progress in cyber education for many years because
Mm,
everyone thought there's a one Bible for cybersecurity called OSCP,
yeah.
and they've been trying to go for it for many years. And
Yeah.
think about it, even OSCP, even OffSec, they changed so much. Okay,
Yeah, of
and
course.
we need to push everyone. We need to push SANS. We need to push Cisco. We need to push TCM. We need to push everyone, saying that
Yeah.
you know what, the things you're doing is not good enough.
It's
Let's
not
do
good enough
better.
anymore. Let's do better. That's it. Let's do better. That can be the closing comment. Hani, it's been so interesting talking to you. You've got some great stories. I know, like I say this on every episode, but we could talk for another hour easily.
Yeah,
But it's been really interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I certainly did. And we'll speak again soon. Thanks very
absolutely.
much.
Thank you.